In our modern world, where information just floods us from every direction, there's this constant quest, isn't there? How can we really dive deep, get the crucial insights quickly, and kind of avoid all that overwhelming noise?
Yeah, it's a real challenge.
Well, our deep dive today offers, I think, a solution to exactly that. We're going to explore the work of a philosopher who presents a really unique path for navigating, well, the complexities of modernity.
Sounds fascinating.
Today, we're taking a really profound look into Wa'il B. Halaq's renowned book, Reforming Modernity, Ethics and the New Human in the Philosophy of Abdurrahman Taha. Now, this isn't just any book. It's more like a gateway, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. A gateway to understanding the vast, and I mean vast, intellectual project of the Moroccan philosopher Abdurrahman Taha.
Okay, so what's our mission here today with this deep dive?
Well, our goal is really to distill the essential insights from this pretty complex work. We want to give you a profound understanding of Taha's philosophy and his very incisive critique of modernity.
So not just a summary.
No, definitely not. We want to illuminate the implications, the relevance, and maybe the deeper significance for your own thinking, how you understand the world.
Right. And this book itself, it's actually an Urdu translation of Halaq's original English work, published by Darul Asrat in Lahore, 2024. Sibir Ali did the translation.
That's right.
But what's really interesting is that Halaq himself wrote a special preface just for this Urdu edition, which really underscores his deep personal connection to this project and, well, his long engagement with Taha's philosophy. It feels like more than just a standard translation preface.
Oh, absolutely. It's clear this was a labor of intellectual affinity. In that preface, Halaq makes it very clear he's been deeply interested in Taha's work for, well, over 2 decades now.
2 decades, wow.
Yeah. And he sees Taha's overall project as fundamentally sound and defensible.
Yeah.
This isn't just a passing interest. It's a sustained engagement. It's actually a crucial part of Halaq's own intellectual journey.
Which we see in his other big works, right?
Exactly. Like Sharia. Theory, Practice, Transformations back in 2009, Impossible State in 2013, and Restating Orientalism in 2018. His dedication to these themes really provides a critical lens for appreciating Taha. It reinforces this idea that, profound ideas often build on layers of connected thought.
That's a fascinating connection, especially given Halaq's own stature in Islamic thought. Okay, let's turn to the man himself, Abdurrahman Taha. He really does stand out as an extraordinary thinker.
He really does.
His intellectual awakening, he actually pinpointed it himself, right? 1967, after the Arab defeat in the Six-Day War, that was the starting point for him.
Yes, that pivotal historical moment. It clearly had a profound impact, reshaped his whole trajectory, really.
Yeah.
Set him on this path of deep inquiry.
And he's been incredibly prolific since then.
Indeed. Since 1979. His first 3 books were more focused on, let's say, classical philosophy, ontology, logic.
The study of being, right.
Exactly. But then, after 1987, his focus shifted dramatically. Over 20 subsequent books, all dedicated to this deep exploration of ethics and a really rigorous critique of modernity.
And his command of Arabic is supposed to be exceptional.
Oh, unparalleled. And his mastery of classical Islamic text, he doesn't just, define words like a dictionary. He dives into the profound depths of their meanings, their nuances, the way they're composed. He reveals layers often missed.
And his background sounds incredibly rich. Moroccan, Arab Islamic, particularly Egyptian thinkers.
And a thorough engagement with European-American modernity and the Enlightenment. It's this breadth that allows him to critically engage with Western thought while staying firmly rooted in his own heritage.
It's interesting Halaq mentions Taha engaging with Western thinkers like Max Weber, Isaiah Berlin, Michael Walzer.
Right.
But he uses them, almost surprisingly, to argue for what he calls adhari pluralism, value pluralism.
Yes, that's a key point. It's not about just adopting Western ideas wholesale. It's much more sophisticated.
Yeah.
He leverages certain Western concepts, you could say, to actually fortify his own Islamic perspective on the multiplicity, the irreducible nature of values.
Which brings us to a challenge Halaq tackles in the book.
The challenge of translation itself.
Exactly. How do you accurately transfer these delicate, ancient concepts from one cultural context, like the Islamic one, into another, like the modern West, where the assumptions, the whole outlook can be fundamentally different?
It's the core philosophical problem of translation, isn't it? What interpretive method do you use to successfully convey someone like Taha to thinkers maybe stuck within modernity's dominant narratives?
And Halaq stresses that no text is beyond critique.
Right. There are always multiple ways to critically engage, even as he defends Taha's overall coherence. It's not just about words. It's about migrating concepts, cultures, trying to get to true understanding, not just, a rough equivalent.
Okay, let's talk about modernity's impact. Halak uses this term inkita, a profound discontinuity for the Islamic experience, particularly in the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
He sees it as the dying gasp of a world that had largely stood on its own terms for centuries. Not just change, but a fundamental rupture.
Precisely. And to grasp this inkita, you have to look back even to the late 18th century. The Ottoman Empire suffering those huge military defeats against Russia.
Right, that triggered reforms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Military reforms started around 1826. But crucially, that same year, the Waqf, these charitable endowments that funded education, social services.
The backbone of civil society in many ways.
Absolutely. They were brought under direct government control, and the impact was catastrophic. Funds for education basically plummeted to near zero by the 1850s.
Wow.
Halak calls this Takamur Tashkil wa Tamir. It's like a sovereign engineering, a deliberate top-down restructuring by the state, and it rapidly transformed the entire landscape, cultural, institutional, experiential, systematically dismantling the foundations.
So if the Waqf system was that crucial for education, does that mean traditional scholarly structures just collapsed? Irreparable damage?
Absolutely. It was a complete ilmi inkita,
Yeah.
an academic discontinuity, a rupture that effectively destroyed the forms of knowledge Islam had cultivated for, nearly 12 centuries.
Centuries.
Through about 650 CE to 1850 CE. So you get new courts, new kinds of legal experts, and maybe most significantly, a new episteme.
A new way of seeing the world.
Exactly. A fundamentally new way of understanding knowledge, of living within the world. These changes symbolize the utter devastation of the traditional system. And many thinkers, Halak argues, even today, haven't fully grasped the depth of this impact. They couldn't see how deep modernity cut because they were still sort of operating within the remnants of the old framework. It was like an intellectual earthquake.
The aftershocks are still felt, you mean?
Very much so.
It's clear the impact was seismic. Okay, let's pivot to Taha's view on Turath heritage. He doesn't see it as just this dead past, something for a museum.
No, not at all.
He sees it as living, vibrant, continuously unfolding. This deep connection to history is a hallmark of Arab societies, right? But he emphasizes its active, dynamic nature.
Precisely. And Halak argues you have to understand modern Arab and Muslim thinkers within the context of this inkita, this break modernity created.
Yeah.
Taha is very critical of the concept of taqaddum, progress.
Progress in the modern sense.
Yes, the secular sense. He views it as a kind of secular theodicy, meaning progress becomes this almost sacred story that justifies everything, explains away suffering, makes all change seem ultimately good.
Okay.
And as a consequence of chasing this secular progress, Taha introduces the concept of akhlaqi taraju, ethical reversion, moral decline.
Ethical decline.
Yeah.
So going backward morally.
Yes, this taraju signifies a return to the past, ethically speaking. But the modern mind often dismisses this idea, calls it atavism, or even a disease.
Like it's pathological to look back.
Exactly. For the modern mindset, returning to traditional ways of thinking or living is backward. But Taha argues this very dismissal is itself a symptom of moral decay.
So how does Halak place this akhlaqi taraj in the bigger picture?
Well, for Halak, and following Taha closely here, akhlaq ethics is what fundamentally distinguishes humans from animals, not just aql-salihiyat, rational capacity.
So reason is important, but ethics is paramount.
That's the emphasis. They stress that Sharia and Tasawwuf Islamic law and Sufism are the central pillars of the Islamic tradition. And within that, the concept of the insani kamil, the perfect human, sets the standard for a virtuous life.
And this connects to the traditional view of knowledge.
Absolutely. Traditionally, the purpose of sciences, math, astronomy, chemistry, was to understand the divine wisdom in creation, to see God's presence. It wasn't, as it became in modernity, about mastering nature, exploiting it, reshaping it for human ends.
A totally different goal.
A foundational difference in the purpose of knowledge. It was ultimately for spiritual and ethical elevation, not just material gain or domination.
That's a profound distinction. Okay, moving on. Taha sees modernity as an incomplete project. He really challenges this idea that modernity is like an Qadir Mutlaq Kuda, an absolute God that you just can't escape.
Right. He argues that viewing modernity that way is itself a non-modern concept, because it basically turns modernity into a myth, something sacred and unquestionable, a dangerous ideological trap in his view.
So how does he define the true spirit of modernity then?
He understands the spirit of modernity as an extension of the meanings found in fitra, human nature. So if the true spirit of modernity is universal, as it claims to be,
then it must be ethical.
exactly, his analysis forces modernity to confront its own claims. If it's truly universal, it has to align with shared human well-being, moral values. Anything presented as modern must be rigorously examined on ethical grounds.
So he's not rejecting it entirely.
No, not wholesale. He's demanding it live up to its own proclaimed ideals, universal, rational, and nation, which he argues it has largely failed to do ethically.
Okay, so his reform project is built on these two key principles. Usul al-Rushd, the principle of maturity, and al-Ibda, the principle of creativity. Let's start with Rushd. What does that mean?
Rushd signifies this really transformative shift, moving from taqlid, which is kind of blind imitation, towards creative autonomy, original thought.
And Halak connects this to Muslim thinkers being perhaps too influenced by the West.
Yes. Halaq argues, channeling Taha, that many Muslim thinkers, sort of mesmerized by the West, have abdicated their intellectual responsibility. They've delegated the work of original thinking to others, to Westerners. Taha sees this as futile, self-defeating, a kind of intellectual servitude.
Giving up your own critical agency.
Precisely. And Taha insists that's a perilous path, unproductive for the flourishing of Islamic thought.
So does this principle of Rushd imply that ethical improvement, moral progress can happen without a complete break? Without another Inkita?
Absolutely. That's a crucial point. According to Halaq, the Islamic methodology allows for both Inkita discontinuity and tasalsul, continuity.
Yep.
You embrace the break when needed, maintain continuity when appropriate.
And this is what Taha calls the modernity of values.
Exactly. Islah-e-Jadidiyat. Not just the modernity of time, Jadidiyat. The modernity of time is just believing things progress chronologically. The modernity of values is about actively revitalizing and integrating ethical principles into life now.
And there's an underlying assumption.
Yes. Necessity arises and fulfills itself. This makes Rushd the means by which spiritual and ethical necessities are generated from within the person. It's not external imposition, it's internal realization, growth. These needs emerge organically from our nature.
A powerful internal drive. Okay, what about the second principle, al-Ibda, creativity? This is about generating new values or reinterpreting old ones, moving beyond just imitation.
Right. It means that while, sure, you can borrow concepts from the West or elsewhere, they must undergo rigorous critical evaluation.
To ensure they fit.
To ensure they harmonize with the fundamental principles of the spirit, as Taha defines it. This allows their application to become a completely fresh, unmediated process. Taha sees Tanquid critique as the Arabic concept naqd.
Which isn't just negative criticism?
No, naqd is more like critically appraising something, polishing it, determining its true value, seeing both merits and flaws. So his emphasis isn't just invention for invention's sake, but creativity rooted in deep ethical foundations, morally guided innovation.
Serving higher purposes than just tech or material gain.
Exactly.
Now, Taha is highly critical of rationalization, or takulkari, this process where science, bureaucracy, capitalism all become subservient to technology, echoing Jacques Ellul you mentioned.
Yes, he argues this leads to a profound loss of human, creative, and ethical freedom. It turns people into, well, cogs in a dehumanizing machine.
And he also critiques tafsil differentiation, the separation of religion and state, religion and ethics, religion and reason.
He does. He sees these separations not as fundamental deep divisions, but merely as functional ones. Western modernity, he argues, doesn't truly create new things, but rather creates existing ones. It presents old realities in new clothes without changing their essence.
So it's a kind of superficial creation.
That's how he sees it. It creates the illusion of novelty without real transformation, obscuring deeper truths.
So how does Islamic Tafriq differentiation differ from this Western idea for Taha?
Islamic Tafriq, in his view, is purposeful and holistic. It emerges only in specific active circumstances for functional reasons. The deep separation of religion and state seen in the West, for instance, wasn't historically the case in Islamic tradition.
So connection is more fundamental.
Well, Taha actually sees Tafriq differentiation as fundamental, not wasl wa itisal, connection and union, meaning differentiation happens only for functional purposes, but the ultimate goal is to keep things interconnected in their essence.
Okay, I see. And universality.
He has no issue with universality itself, but he asks the critical question, whose values will end up annihilating others? For him, modernity is humanity's shared property, so globalization is acceptable if it respects value pluralism.
Mutual respect, not domination.
Exactly. Universality through sharing, not imposition.
Right. Now, Halak highlights that Taha blames Alaratukil instrumental rationality for the massive catastrophes of the 20th century. Reason as just a tool stripped of ethics.
Yes, precisely. This is reason that, lacking an ethical core, degenerates into yal ignorance, in a profound sense. It carries the seeds of destruction within its very applications.
So Taha proposes a new molding of reason.
No, Idala, yes. A rationality grounded firmly in ethical principles. He argues the way reason is defined and used in modernity is simply insufficient because it ignores or actively excludes the ethical dimension. When reason becomes just a tool, it becomes inherently destructive.
And Taha says tajriba experience is the sole criterion for productivity that shakes action in life.
Yes. Experience is key. Building on that, he introduces guided reason, or akli musadad.
Okay, what is guided reason?
It's reason connected to the quality of heart. It's not autonomous, not detached. It shows up in Sharia amal's actions based on Islamic law, where someone tries to gain benefit or avoid harm in an ethical sense.
And the word musadad is important.
Deeply significant. It implies correctness, soundness, rectitude. It's a stark contrast to the dominant Western modern idea of reason as totally self-sufficient, free from ethical constraints. This is reason informed by spiritual and moral insight.
What about just going through the motions, Razmi Arayagi ritualistic performance?
Taha is clear. Ibadat, acts of worship, are meaningless if they're just rituals. What's fundamental is nayat, intention, and masad, purpose.
So akli musadad involves intention.
It implies a mujarrad apal, abstract reason connected to these ethical actions, Sharia amal. It's not autonomous reason, but it's also free from blind imitation, taqlid. It's reason contemplating within Sharia, aiming for ethical action and spiritual refinement, not just abstract thought.
Then there's akla murayid enhanced reason. That goes even further.
Yes. It represents actions where the individual truly grasps things in their original state, diving into the full depth of Sharia amal. It suggests a really profound spiritual and intellectual insight.
Where does this idea come from?
It's rooted in Abu al-Hasan al-Amiri's concept of Islam as the measure of the world. Aqli Mu'ayyid integrates the practical side of guided reason with a deep epistemological and psychological unity with reality. The effects penetrate the nasi ilmidata, the psychoepistemic self.
And the key takeaway?
The crucial point is this. Any knowledge that doesn't meaningfully relate to practical ethics, that doesn't guide you towards virtuous action, is ultimately pointless. It should be rejected. For Taha, the true goal of knowledge is ethical and spiritual elevation, not just worldly success.
That's a powerful critique of knowledge for knowledge's sake. Now, what about a fakiyat al-aqli universal reason? Taha says this is for everyone, Muslim or not.
Yes. For Taha, the need for Ilhami Masab, revealed religion, is actually proven by all these movements turning back to religion because of modernity's crises.
Okay.
But he poses this critical question. Should every nation just return to its ancestral religion? Or should the knowledgeable people from all groups, nations, communities come together and figure out principles they can all agree on? Universally agreed principles.
A search for universal ethics beyond specific traditions.
Exactly, drawing on shared spiritual insights perhaps.
This also brings up time. You mentioned tariki waqt, historical time, and akhlaqi waqt, ethical time. What's the difference?
A fundamental difference. Tariki waqt is the time of unique events. They happen once, can't be repeated. Responsibility lies with those who acted. It's history unfolding.
Irreversible.
Yes. Akhlaqi waqt, though, is the time of values. And values, unlike events, can be revived, reactualized. Human essence for Taha is ethics. Our actions should be towards others, treating them as moral equals. This defines the Akhlaqi Maidan, the ethical domain where everyone has ethical responsibilities to others. Ethical time lets us revive past values essential for our moral life now.
Okay. Halaq says Taha's approach to religion and politics is primarily spiritual, not historical, political, social, legal. The focus is on Ruh al-Din, the spirit of religion.
Yes. Taha defines the Ruh spirit as this hidden substance distinct from the nafs, the self or ego. It pushes the self towards good deeds, connects us to the unseen world, alam al-kaib.
And he makes a distinction
between extra-transcendentalization, taking worldly knowledge to a transcendental level, and intra-transcendentalization, bringing the unseen into the world, which is what religion does. Politics relates to the first, religion to the second.
So religion isn't just an add-on.
For Taha, absolutely not. It's not temporary, something you remove when times are good. It's intrinsic to human existence, our natural state. not just a social construct, but our deepest existential need.
So if religion is that natural, how does secular modernity distort it?
Secular modernity distorts it by denying uberiyat transcendence, and then it takes that distorted natural force and uses it for destructive ends. Religion can't escape this, Taha says, because it's inherent to action itself.
So how do you counter that?
Taha suggests 3 principles. 1, determine the nafs and ruh. 2, train and purify the nafs. 3, adopt a todribi manhaj, a management methodology for this inner transformation. Religion and politics are like parallel paths, both depending on our relationship with the seen, shahudi, and the unseen, kaibi. They're interconnected aspects of being human.
Okay, now Taha critiques secular self-legislation, the idea that human will is autonomous and can create law from scratch. That's a core modern idea he rejects.
He does. For Taha, human will cannot fundamentally contradict the divine will. We don't create law out of nothing. We reenact or re-implement existing divine or natural law. Secularism, he argues, is fundamentally anthropocentric.
Human-centered.
Yes, placing humanity as the first and final agent. This essentially puts humans in God's place, a dangerous deviation, alienating us from our true nature and cosmic place.
And the relationship between freedom and law, it often seems like a trade-off.
Halak, relaying Taha, puts it counterintuitively. The greater the obedience to divine ethical law, the greater the freedom achieved.
Freedom through structure.
In a sense. He points out how humanity gets mesmerized by its own rationality, dreams of conquering time, space, death. And Taha even finds the term muwatan citizen problematic.
Why?
Because it's a product of the nation-state, an entity he deeply critiques. For Taha, true freedom isn't arbitrary self-will, but conscious submission to divine law, which brings liberation and order.
Taha also argues that seeing religion as just niji ibadat, private devotions, is incomplete.
Very incomplete. And he critiques that slogan, Islam is both religion and state. He wants a more nuanced view.
So what is an Islami riyasat in his view?
According to Halak, for Taha, it's essentially a state of Islam, not a religious state in the modern Western sense. He looks back at pre-modern sources. Halak notes the concept of Dawla, a sovereign territorial state like we know it didn't really exist throughout pre-Islamic history.
So Taha uses Dawla differently.
Yes, in the sense of the state of Islam, implying an ijtimaya, a community, a collective, rather than the Western state defined by borders, absolute sovereignty, monopoly on violence, a crucial distinction for his vision of a Muslim society.
Halak emphasizes the power of the modern state, its monopoly on violence, its dominance over society.
It's undeniable. And Taha argues that modern humans voluntarily enslave themselves while thinking they're freer than ever. The state dominates all social organization. Halak mentions thinkers like Walpole and Hobbes in this context, who explored the basis for the state's power. Taha reveals how deep this self-imposed servitude runs, hidden by freedom rhetoric.
So, against this backdrop, what is Taha's concept of tahrir, resistance, or liberation?
For Taha, tahrir is an unending activity, khair madud sargarmi. It starts small, within the family, close social groups. It's very different from military jihad.
It's the jihad akbar, the greater jihad.
Exactly. Taha defines jihad akbar as a proactive act, iqdami fi'l, and a transformative activity, tahami sargarmi. The goal isn't just resistance, it's actively generating justice and goodness. An internal spiritual struggle first, radiating outward, aiming for deep ethical change.
And what role does Iman faith play in this?
Taha sees Iman as the only true sultan, the ultimate sovereign authority that can displace all other governmental powers.
Faith is the real power.
Yes. Through faith, worship, and tazkiyah, purifying the self, people free themselves from the dominance of the nafs, the ego. This leads to genuine freedom, expanded ethical scope. Tazkiyah is a performative act, adai, done through the power of the ruh, the spirit. The goal isn't worldly power, but establishing true adil justice. Faith empowers liberation from both internal and external servitude.
That's a deeply spiritual call to action. Okay, finally, Halak in his preface mentions this latif taluk, a subtle connection with Taha, describes it as spiritual, intellectual, beyond physical meetings, in latif alam, a subtle world. It speaks volumes about their connection.
It really does. And Halak argues Taha's work, especially when compared to someone like Jabri,
whose work Taha critiqued.
Right. Taha's work represents an intellectual inversion of pre-modern Islam, and this inversion has huge implications for critiquing modernity's narratives. Jabri criticized Orientalists and Muslim thinkers for fragmenting Arab philosophy, but Taha found Jabri's own claims flawed.
What was Taha's emphasis instead?
Amal, action, and qual, speech. not just abstract rational arguments. He valued virtues like ajazi, humility, inkisari, modesty, shukuguzari, gratitude. These aren't passive virtues for him. They're integral to positive action in the world. They actively guide you towards an ethical life.
So, dear listener, wrapping up our deep dive today, we've journeyed through Abdurrahman Taha's profound philosophy, really seen through Wai'l B. Halaq's insightful eyes. We've looked at how modernity hit the Muslim world and how Taha offers this path to reform it, using principles like Usul al-Rushd, maturity, and Ibda, creativity. We dug into his idea of a new molding of reason, where intellect is tied to the qalb, the heart. And we touched on his revolutionary ideas about supreme authority, where iman, faith, becomes the real ruler.
Yeah, and this deep dive really shows, I think, that Taha's philosophy isn't just theory. It's a comprehensive framework for practical change, for liberating the human spirit. It helps you understand ethics as the core of our being and how revealed knowledge can guide our actions, freeing our nafs, our self, from worldly domination.
And Halaq himself sees it as a masterpiece of action, not just theory.
Exactly. An intellectual project with profound insights for tackling today's challenges.
So, for you now, a lingering question to maybe mull over. If the path to real freedom actually involves, in a sense, self-binding to ethical principles, and if divine wisdom is woven into our very being, is it truly possible to reverse this akhlaqi taraju, this ethical decline in our daily lives, and actually achieve akhlaqi taraqi, ethical progress?
That's a big question.
It is. And if it is possible, what fundamental shifts do we need to cultivate within our own qalb and rue our hearts and spirits to even begin that transformation? We really hope this deep dive has given you not just information, but maybe ignited a deeper thirst for your own exploration.